Good morning, everybody. Thank you for spending the time to listen to our presentation today, and thank you for the organizers for inviting me. There's nothing worse than being one of the last presenters on a beautiful day in Rome. I'm sure everyone is out and about enjoying this beautiful city. I'm CEO of Aurion Biotech. I'm here to talk about what potentially could be one of the largest transformations in medicine that we've seen in ophthalmology in a long time. Aurion Biotech is a company targeting various diseases affecting the eye. Our first indication is a program targeting corneal endothelial disease. Corneal endothelial disease is one of the largest and most pervasive areas of untreated disease in ophthalmology today. It's a disease that affects approximately, in the Western world, 32 million eyes. More so, there's about 7 million people in the world today that are blind from corneal endothelial disease simply because they don't have access to corneal tissue to address disease. In fact, as we look today at the standard of care is corneal transplant. For every 70 diseased eyes, there's only one donor available, and modern corneal transplant is not something that's scalable to allow us to address this terrible scourge we face around the world. Now, with our treatment, this is a treatment that started in university at Kyoto Prefecture University in Japan. Initial patients were dosed in 2013. We've now had over 130 eyes treated outside the U.S. In an ongoing phase 1/2 in the U.S. as we speak. Some of the original cohort of patients are now at 10 years. We know the drug works. It's clinically validated. And that's really propelled us from a regulatory standpoint. So this is a drug that's already been approved in Japan. We got approval last year. We're finalizing reimbursement as we speak, and we'll be launching commercially in July. Additionally, we opened the U.S. IND a year ago. Phase 1/2 is almost fully recruited. We're weeks away from full recruitment. We'll report data late this year, early next year. This is a technology that's well backed. We'll get to that in a second. We've raised quite a bit of money during very difficult financial markets, driven really on the basis of the back of the size of the opportunity that we're addressing, and more so the data we've seen thus far. What's most exciting and really kind of correlates to the last presentation is what we're working on is something that, again, we're addressing an area of large unmet need, but more so we have a scaling that allows us to do this worldwide. So this is something that, that today we can make 1,000 doses for every donor. In the not too distant future, that number could go up dramatically. We've actually done up to 75,000 doses per donor in our development lab. So this could very well be the first mass market cell therapy that we've seen in this field. The team is backed by people with deep experience in cell therapy and ophthalmology. For those of you that are novices to ophthalmology, obviously the cornea is essential to vision. Without a healthy cornea, we can't see. And the corneal endothelial cells arguably have the most important role in the cornea. It's those last layer of tissue, it's those purple hexagon shaped cells there. Their role is very straightforward. Their role is to regulate the amount of fluid going in and out of the cornea. Too much or too little can lead to cell death. That cell death can lead to irreversible vision loss. Now, interestingly enough, corneal endothelial cells are like brain cells. They do not naturally regenerate. This is the art and science of what we've been able to figure out with our program. In the eyes of the patient, corneal endothelial disease is progressive. All patients will progress over time if they live long enough. Generally, we see the onset of this disease in the early 40s, all the way through the end of life as progression continues. In the eyes of the patient, how this plays out is as soon as the endothelium start to digress and we lose cell counts and the ability to maintain its pumping function. The cornea clouds, primarily from edema from the influx of fluid. Over time, that edema progresses, leading towards visual quality issues like glares and halos, difficulty in low light reading and nighttime driving, then progressing to problems in the morning, eventually to vision loss, and in fact to blindness in certain parts of the world. The cool thing about our treatment is this is a single one-time injection of cells. Those cells form a monolayer and basically create a new corneal endothelial monolayer that looks like what we would see in an infant or a young child. So it's a very healthy cornea. Quickly, that pumping function restarts. The cornea clears, and the visual function and visual quality issues are ameliorated very quickly, and patients have nearly perfect vision restored. Now, I said earlier this is a prevalent disease. The National Institutes of Health in the United States estimate that 4% of the population over the age of 40 is prevalent for the most common form of corneal endothelial disease, which is referred to as Fuchs dystrophy. Fuchs dystrophy tends to be skewed towards Caucasians and females, but it is a worldwide problem. We see it in every country in the world at different levels. Again, on that basis of that NIH data, we assume there are about 32 million people, or 32 million eyes in the Western world, and about 1 million eyes per year that are incident for corneal endothelial disease. So it's a very large market. But what's more really interesting is the question on the right is there's only about 70,000 corneal transplants done every single year. So the question is, why do we not see more use of corneal transplant around the world? One is it is a very complex procedure. It's a procedure that takes about an hour to do. It has a number of short-term and long-term sequelae. It's only done by a very limited number of surgeons around the world. In fact, in the United States, there's about 300 corneal specialists do corneal transplant versus about 8,000 ophthalmologists doing cataract surgery. We'll get to in a second why that's important. I talked about earlier, today in the world, there's only one donor every 70 diseased eyes. That number is actually increasing. If you look at the rate of transplant or organ donation over the last 30 years, this number has not changed at all, and there's no hope for it to move forward. Many parts of the world, even here in Europe and in Canada, there is very little access to tissue. So even in the Western world, we have lots of patients who are on backlog with severe disease, much less we'll talk about getting to earlier disease with our treatment. And again, this is something that's much less invasive. It's a rapid procedure with minimal interaction with the patient. Therefore, we can move it forward. Again, what we talked about earlier is we have high scaling. Again, I think that the number and the scaling will go up dramatically over the next few years. This is a procedure that not only is the sequelae nearly zero, we've never had a rejection, we've never had a failure in the dose that we're moving forward in our trials, and more so the post-operative time is skewed towards our technology. It's a 3-hour post face down versus a 3-day on your back with corneal transplant. We expect this can be done by any ophthalmologist in the world, so whether it be a cataract specialist, a retina specialist, a glaucoma specialist. In the U.S., we're targeting 8,000 ophthalmologists versus the 300 of corneal transplant. So very scalable, not just in terms of the number of treatments we make available and the invasiveness of the procedure, but also in the number of treaters around the world. Here's the procedure. It's 3 straightforward steps. Step 1, we make an incision in the eye. We use a polishing technique to remove the diseased endothelium. Step 2, we inject cells. And in the final step, we put patients face down up to 3 hours. We think in the real world, this number will be significantly less than 3 hours. We have data right now that suggests this could be as low as 30 minutes. So it's a very, very straightforward for the patient to be able to recover from this procedure. What's cool about this program is it's a universal treatment. So we're using the endothelial cells that are fully differentiated adult corneal endothelial cells, but we don't have to type test. We don't have to gene edit. So it's from an executional standpoint, it's pretty straightforward. We do believe it is a single injection of cells in one's lifetime. Obviously, we're up to 10 years of data. We have not had any failures or rejections yet, and we'll continue to monitor this. But I can tell you in modern corneal transplant, about 20 to 30% of patients fail by year 5. So not only do we think we have a better mousetrap in terms of the scalability and the invasiveness of this procedure, we also actually think in the real world this is going to be better in corneal transplant from a durability perspective. The cells are how we make the cells. We take donated cadaveric donors. We remove the endothelium. We use a proprietary way to get the endothelium to endothelial cells to regenerate. We turn the process off, and then we inject into patients. So again, what's most exciting about this program is where the data is at. Before the opening of our phase 1/2 trial, we've treated 130 subjects in Japan and El Salvador. Japan, because that's where the product was invented. El Salvador, because we wanted to fine-tune the procedure before we went into phase 1/2 trials. We did this during the pandemic. El Salvador was close to proximity to the United States, and we could bring U.S. corneal specialists with us to do these procedures. This is the original 11 patients that were treated back in 2013. This data has been reported at 2 years in the New England Journal of Medicine and at 5 years in ophthalmology. As a side note, in ophthalmology, it's very rare that we find things in the New England Journal of Medicine. I can count on my hands the number of papers of novel therapeutics that we've seen in this area, in this journal, the last 10 years in New England Journal of Medicine. What we're looking for is kind of two features from a data perspective. One is central corneal thickness. That's the anatomic definition of disease. In corneal endothelial disease, obviously, as the cornea gets more indeminous, it gets more swollen or thicker. We're looking for a range from 500 to 550 in terms of microns. In a healthy cornea, these patients were started at 743 microns. That's quite sick. By month 6, they're back to healthy ranges, and they stay there through 5 years. As we look more importantly, though, at vision, the real question we want to answer is, can we provide not only an anatomic benefit, but also a clinically relevant and functional benefit? These patients came in at 2,220. If you're a novice ophthalmology, 2,220 is legal blindness. 2020 is legal blindness. We're right at the legal blindness line. By month 6, they're 2033, and they're 2030 at 5 years. Why that's important is you need to be 2040 to drive a car in most states in the United States and many parts of the world. I would say I've personally seen these patients along with our chief medical officer at 10 years. We're going to report that data here over the next few months. I would tell you they're all 11 patients continue to see extraordinarily well at 10 years, and we'll keep following those patients as they go. Now, if you take the 3 trials that we've run, the cohort in Japan, the 2 trials in El Salvador, and we try to compare against endpoints trial by trial, what you'll see is a consistency of results in different populations of patients and different severity of disease. In central corneal thickness, again, what I said earlier is we're trying to get to 500 or 550 microns. We basically get there by month 1, so you can see the speed of the drug working and getting the pumping function restarted. By 12 months, we can stay stable. Again, we're following these patients, and they're all stable. Most importantly, though, is the question. Looks like the battery looks like it's run out on the remote. Can you move the next slide, please? Thank you. This is vision. So in ophthalmology, a clinically relevant improvement in vision is 3 lines of improvement of vision. That's 15 letters on the visual chart. Very few therapeutics have been able to demonstrate this in a consistent way. We're showing by 12 months, over 90% of patients have 3 lines of improvement. If we compare this against other areas of ophthalmology, the largest area, probably the largest, most successful therapeutic in ophthalmology is anti-VEGF, so Lucentis, Eylea, and Avastin. If you go back to the original pivotal trials for those drugs, they saw 30 to 40% of patients at 3 lines of improvement. Getting 90% of patients at 3 lines of improvement is unheard of in our area, and really something we only see in surgery. So things like cataract surgery, you might be able to see this. In terms of where we are from a regulatory standpoint, we do have approval in Japan. Like I said, we're finishing reimbursement as we speak, and we'll be launching in July in Japan. In the U.S., the phase 1/2 is just about enrolled. We'll report data into this year, early next year, and we'll start our phase 3 trials rapidly in the U.S. Starting next year, this time next year. And we're in interaction with EMA as we speak. The company's backed by a significant cohort of investors. So Deerfield, probably one of the top 2 biotech investors in the world, KKR, and many others in the syndicate. The company's continuing to make a lot of forward progress. I think as we look retrospectively where the company's come from, we came off the back of winning the Prix Gallienne in 2022. For those of you who know the Prix Gallienne well, it's the highest award in drug development that one can receive. We were the top biotech and pharma startup in 2022. More importantly, as we look forward, again, we're anticipating launch in Japan imminently. The phase 1/2 data is ongoing. We are doing so our first program is a fresh product that has a 14-day shelf life. That is about 2 times the shelf life of corneal tissue. Corneal tissue usually lasts about 7 days, so we can fit the fresh program into the existing supply chain. We do have a cryo program that we're working on. We'll do a pilot study in humans later on this year, and really we're focusing on being phase 3 ready for this time next year. That is Aurion Biotech in summary. I do think this is a program that continues to show high levels of efficacy, safe program, durable, but most importantly, highly scalable. We will be able to take this to every nook and cranny of the world. We are making active plans to be able not only take it to the Western world, but also in the developing world, including places like Africa. Thank you for your time. Take any questions you might have. Any questions? Okay, thank you very much.